let that light of joy shine in your life all the time. Oh, let that light of joy, let that light of joy, let that light of joy shine in your life.
Well, as I got ready for this talk, over the past month, I had picked up this Unity pamphlet, the spiritual journey from addiction to recovery that we have out on the welcome table. And this reading was just right in line with what I was going to talk about. So I'm going to read it right here from this pamphlet. It is called Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. There are 2 days of every week about which we should not worry. 2 days which should be kept free from fear and apprehension. One of these days is yesterday, with its mistakes and cares, its faults, its blunders, its aches, its pains. Yesterday has passed forever beyond our control. All the money in the world cannot bring back yesterday. We cannot undo a single act we performed. We can't erase a single word we said. Yesterday is gone. The other day we should not worry about is tomorrow, with its possible adversities, its burdens, its larger promise. Tomorrow is also beyond our immediate control. Tomorrow the sun will rise, either in splendor or behind a mask of clouds. But it will rise. Until it does, we have no stake in tomorrow, for it is yet unborn. This leaves us only one day, today. Any man can fight the battles of just one day. It is only when you and I add the burden of those 2 awful eternities, yesterday and tomorrow, that we break down. It is not the experience of today that drives men mad. It is the remorse and bitterness for something which happened yesterday and for the dread of what tomorrow may bring. Let us therefore live one day at a time. That I love, and how well it goes for our last Sunday of May. Now this is our Memorial Day Sunday. It's the last Sunday of purple, of looking at our power, our dominion, our faculty. And what I call today is giving up the grudge. Now, I'm sure you've had the experience of either hearing or sharing at a party or at a meeting some juicy grudge that calls forth in other people laughter or sympathy. Oh, poor you! How did you ever survive that? And we go away feeling, yes, I still have something I can share in these social situations. But also a grudge is quite a heavy burden in our life. For a grudge indicates that there's some resentment, some holding on yesterday which doesn't exist anymore, that we keep bringing into our present. And if it involves another person, we're carrying that person with us all the time. That might be a parent, an old partner, an old spouse, a sibling. It might be what we see in the mirror. So let's explore giving up the grudge. And I turn to the Bible. Proverbs 10:12 talks about this with great wisdom. Hate stirs up trouble. Love overlooks the wrongs that others do. That's the equation. Hate is just going to give us more pain, more struggle, more strife, a lot of trouble. And love unravels all of that. And that's our goal, isn't it? Isn't our goal to experience more wholeness, more peace, more sense that, life is pretty good? And yes, there's always going to be something that we have to deal with. The rent, taxes, a diagnosis, an irritation. Life is going to have what life has to offer. I turn to great wisdom of Dr. Frederick Luskin. Now, Dr. Frederick Luskin is the head of the Stanford University Forgiveness Project, and he offers 3 things to know about forgiveness. The first one is forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for the offender. Always, forgiveness is for ourselves. It has really nothing to do with the offender. Number 2, the best idea is do it now. We can put off forgiveness as long as we desire. We're the one holding it. And we can hold it as long as we want. But isn't it, once we recognize that we're carrying around some pain, isn't it worthwhile to just do it now? And the last is 3. It's about freeing yourself. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to like what they did and become their friend. You might, but that's not the goal. It's not condoning the behavior. It's not saying that wasn't painful. It's not focusing on the pain anymore. The pain's past. Why keep feeling it? It's about freeing ourselves, letting go of the burden of the past so that we can more fully experience this present moment. There's a lot present in the moment, but we can't fully experience it until we let go and free ourselves. I turn to the wisdom of co-founder of Unity, Myrtle Fillmore. And she's got a lot to say about forgiveness. And we start with forgiveness is not silent consent. The negative appearance of making the best of a situation while underneath there's a resentment. We know this one. That's the one where we feign, oh, everything's all right. I'll be fine. That's not forgiveness. That's just playing the martyr role, which is a whole nother thing, which has its payoff and its benefit. Stricken in the prime of life. There's a lot of books and movies about it. It's a good story. But it's not forgiveness. It's not freeing. It's not going to give us a new way of being. She goes on to say, forgiveness is the art of putting something else in place of the thing forgiven. That's why it frees us. Now, if my car is full of junk, there's no room to take anyone anywhere. But if I clear out all the junk, there's room for someone else. Now that's an outward picture of what goes on inside of us. When we clear out and forgive something, there's space for something else. Now, I could tell you a story about something my father said to me when I was 5 years old that really burned me up, that I carried for decades, about the monster that came down on me. And I could be very right about it. My father had a propensity for rage. And he would rage. Now, as a little child, I could see that as a monster. But when I look back and my need to forgive that resentment, I need to really forgive. Let what was be and not carry it anymore with me. She continues to conclude, it does not matter that there is no immediate transformation. You have made use of your God power to erase the appearance and to establish truth. Such an attitude invites only the best of other souls. So when we do this act of forgiveness, it is not necessarily going to take care of it all at once. Because in my case, if I'd been holding on to a resentment since I was 5 years old, I held that resentment when I was 6 and 7 and 8. And here, in a week or so, I'm going to be 62. There's a lot of lives in me to let go of any resentment that's been carried that long. But as soon as I set my forgiveness on it, I've done all I can do. I've used my God-given power of forgiveness, and I'm allowing it to transform the very movement in my life. And that begins to transform others, perhaps even the people involved in that which I'm forgiving. Now, my own case with my father, I had an opportunity to talk with him about those times in my life. And he was able to share his pain and his dissatisfaction with being that raging person that at one time I thought was a monster, when it was just a person in pain, a human being. And what I will say about my father, there is no one you would want more present in your life than my father in the event of emergency. He could hold the container, take care of whatever needed to happen, and make sure everyone was safe. That's a much more powerful image for me to have of my father. This is very telling. It's something we've heard many times. This is from the message translation of the Bible, Matthew 18:21-22. At that point, Peter got up the nerve to ask, Master, how many times do I forgive a brother or sister who hurts me? 7? Jesus replied, 7? Hardly. Try 70 times 7. And it takes what it takes. We don't forgive and then, okay, we've done that. Psst, no more forgiveness. Just like that example of if I've been holding a resentment since I'm 5 years old, I've got to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive until it's a non-issue. It's no longer has any power over my today experience. In other words, I'm no longer carrying that into my now moment. But It's very empowering to forgive, for it gives us the freedom. It opens some space for something new. I turn again to the wisdom of and research of Dr. Frederick Luskin, and these are 4 tactics to begin the practice of forgiveness. I love this. 1, calm yourself down in the moment. Dr. Luskin said, you have to counter-condition the stress response when it happens. When we're all worked up, when all the energy's going, the adrenaline, the heart's going, it's going to be very hard for us to practice anything other than a lot of yelling and screaming, a lot of shaking. Calm yourself down. Take a breath. Take 10 breaths. Go for a walk. Draw a nice hot bath. Whatever you know what it takes for you to find your center and to calm down. That's number 1. Number 2 is shift how you think and talk about the source of your grudge. Dr. Luskin says, change your story from that of a victim to a more heroic story. Since the past doesn't exist anymore, we can change how we tell the story. If you see a really bad movie, don't you rewrite it? Well, if I was the director, I would have had it end this way. We can do that because we have this power of thinking. So we can shift how we think and talk about it. So as soon as I stop talking about my father as this monster and start talking about him as a real human being who is loving, who is complex, who had anger issues, and was great in an emergency. Kind of like worthy of someone you'd want to meet. The third one is pay attention to the good things in your life to balance the harm. If we track everything in our life and look at all the good things in our life, we can come up with a much longer list of things than the list of things that we'd call bad things in our life, challenging things in our life. And when we focus on the good, we experience more gratitude. We experience more peace. In truth, I think we experience better health simply by putting our attention on those things that we'd say, wow, my life is pretty good just the way that it is. 4, remind yourself of one simple truth. Life doesn't always turn out the way you want it to. I bet each of us can think about things that if we had the power to go back in time and change it so that thing didn't happen in our life, we'd go in a half second. But guess what? That's not how it works. And it's much better to just accept that life doesn't always work out the way we want it to. Sometimes life is going to really hurt. Sometimes situations are going to happen that are beyond our control. Or maybe it is in our control and we've massively failed. We've misjudged. We didn't account for everything, and now there's a big old mess. Life doesn't always turn out the way we want it to. But we can determine how we want to look at that life and how long we want to carry the burdens around with us. I turn to Marianne Williamson, who is an ordained Unity minister and a great writer. I have most of her books. She has some powerful stuff to talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not always easy. Let me say that again. Forgiveness is not always easy. At times, it feels more painful than the wound we suffered to forgive the one that inflicted it. And yet, there is no peace without forgiveness. We can be holding on to a big grudge. And that grudge can have so much energy, it's a part of us. Just like our left arm. And when we have this appearance of something that's so important to us, but it's not really a part of who we are, we've just been holding it for so long, it feels like a part of us. Well, that can feel like we're letting go of something that's a lot more painful than the original offender that inflicted that pain. Often it can be that way. Now, sometimes we've experienced unbelievable cruelty and harm. But we cannot, will not experience peace until we forgive. What's the recipe for experiencing peace? Forgive. And how many times do we need to forgive? 70 times 7 if we need to. Sometimes it only takes 70. That's a blessing. But if it takes 70 times 7, that's what it takes. And I know for myself that I have to forgive myself. When I look in the mirror, I have to forgive everything about myself. Because if I don't forgive myself, how can I really forgive anything else in my life? It was quite some time ago that I had the commitment to give myself a pink slip. I absolutely refused to ever say anything to myself that I wouldn't freely say about anybody else. And believe me, I used to say things to myself I would never have said to anybody else. And that began an incredible journey because I could mute that voice and change the story and even forgive that voice. It's all a practice of wholeness and peace. And to conclude this talk, I turn to Unity's booklet, The Book of Silent Prayer. And this is a sure remedy. Here is a mental treatment that is guaranteed to cure every ill that the flesh is heir to. Here it is. Sit every night and mentally forgive everyone against whom you have any ill will or antipathy. That's a good indicator. Because if you have any little niggle about anybody or yourself, that's something we need to forgive. And if we do this every night, take out the trash. Just put it out. Don't lay your head on the pillow until you've released yourself from any ill will or antipathy towards anyone, including yourself. And then sleep is pretty darn nice because we've set down the today that tomorrow becomes the yesterday, and we don't have to carry anything from yesterday into the now. That's giving up the grudge. So let's take this moment, and as we breathe and settle in, let's take this forgiveness, our freedom of the now moment, into meditation as David gives us some music to settle in, breathe, and relax. Peace, be still. Who has God lacks nothing. God alone fills every need. This is why we come to a time where we meditate. As the daily word today said, in the silence. It's available to us when we breathe and let go. Relax and open our heart. To relax and allow our mind to let go of any to-dos, any have-tos, any gotta's, or any what's. Meditation is letting go of our need to dictate the answers and to listen. Peace and know. Peace and know we're one with God. Let's take our peace, our open heart, our relaxed body into this time in the silence. Be still and know that I am one with God. We're grateful to have this connection. And as we bring the realization of intuition, of clarity, and of peace, we express our gratitude and know that we're blessed. So we come out of this time of meditation by breathing and flexing some muscles. We might wiggle our toes or wiggle our fingers, roll our head. And when we're ready, we open our eyes. And it's from there that we will say this affirmation for today. Together. I forgive and receive the power of forgiveness. And so it is, and so we let it be.
Lead your faith. Step out on the water. Release your faith. Every step is strong.